Everyone, I've been reviewing this 2020 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro this week, and I've actually already reviewed one of these. I took a trip up to Seattle late last year, and Toyota was cool enough to let me borrow one. It was actually this exact same spec, 2020 TRD Pro, in this totally awesome army green color. I don't know if you can see it real well in the light, but yeah, you've seen this color before. It's probably the best of the TRD Pro special colors that have been out since 2015 model year when the TRD Pro line debuted. But in this video, I kind of wanted to address something that bothers me about the 4Runner TRD Pro. When I first drove this thing, I didn't think I was going to like it, but as soon as I sat down behind the wheel, totally loved it. It's fun, it's blocky, it's been out for so long. This design, you could theoretically have bought one of these vehicles pretty much the same as it is here in late 2009, so it's now entering its 12th model year in production. I thought it was going to feel really old, but it turns out it's been out for so long that it's actually kind of retro at this point in the game. So I really loved it, but what kind of has bugged me about the TRD Pro line is that it lacks what is arguably the 4Runner's best overall feature, and that is the Kinetic dynamic suspension system that you can get on the TRD off-road model. So what KDSS is, and someone with more of an engineering background can explain this much better than I can, but it's effectively an automatically disconnecting sway bar system. So it's front and rear. It comes standard on the Land Cruiser, standard on the LX570, standard on the GX460, and it's optional on the 4Runner. And what it does is automatically, essentially, this is a really unsophisticated way of explaining it, but it essentially automatically disconnects or tightens the sway bars depending on the positioning of the wheels. So, a vehicle without KDSS just has mechanical sway bars. They function pretty much the same way on-road as they do off-road. What KDSS does is, on-road, it can be tighter when it needs to be. Off-road, it can loosen when it needs to be, which allows for more wheel articulation. And it's kind of the Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator have a sway bar system that you can disconnect via a button on the dashboard. 4Runner's is more sophisticated, and it connects and disconnects automatically. So it's really the most technologically advanced thing in the game right now. And it's funny because it debuted back in the mid-2000s, I think, on the GX470. But anyway, what's weird about the TRD Pro model is that it is billed as the ultimate 4Runner, and yet it doesn't have KDSS. It has these Fox and TRD tuned special internal bypass shock absorbers. They have red coils, so you know they're good, I guess. But it has these shock absorbers which are good, certainly, but it doesn't have KDSS, and kind of bugs me how Toyota glosses over that in all the marketing for the 4Runner. What I attribute this to is an effort to cut costs. There's kind of two different types of features in a vehicle from the automaker standpoint. There are features that are expensive to add and features that are not expensive to add. You look at something like wheels. A vehicle has to come with wheels. So whether or not they are really kind of boring 17-inch wheels that are silver and not a very attractive design, or whether they're really cool matte black 18-inch TRD wheels like this one, either way they're going to cost Toyota about the same. But something like KDSS, it's kind of like a sunroof. A sunroof is a physical feature. A car that doesn't have a sunroof will absolutely 100% of the time cost less for the manufacturer to produce than a vehicle with a sunroof, all else equal, because there's components involved, there's extra engineering involved, it takes longer to produce the vehicle. So what you'll see is companies sometimes leaving out these kinds of features on higher trim levels as a way to add in more profit margin. So for example, you'll notice that the early Tacoma TRD Pro actually didn't have a sunroof. So you figure it's a $50,000 truck with a sunroof. It might cost Toyota $40,000. I'm just throwing it out there, $40,000 to produce. So you get rid of the sunroof, then maybe it only costs Toyota $39,000 to produce, and that savings is pure profit because Toyota knows that whether the truck has a sunroof or not, people are still going to spend $50,000 on it. And I think that's what Toyota is doing with the TRD Pro and KDSS. The suspension is really good in this thing, but still, you're not getting that really interesting and innovative feature in my eyes. And to me, I think that makes the TRD off-road model. Now, KDSS is only optional on the TRD off-road, so not every 4Runner TRD off-road is going to come with KDSS, but to me, a 4Runner TRD off-road optioned with KDSS is arguably a better buy than a 4Runner TRD Pro. I think with KDSS, you can get a TRD off-road for about $42,000. TRD Pro is going to run you over $50,000, and you can't even get it with KDSS. And that leaves $8,000 or $10,000 left to work with on modifications, customizations. If you want to get the TRD Pro grill, if you want to get the TRD Pro wheels, you can do all that and still save a little bit of money. And well, you can always upgrade shock absorbers, which is what this thing has. You can't retroactively add in KDSS. So that's just my take. The roof rack on this thing is kind of another point of frustration for me. If Toyota's going to add a special roof rack, why not make one that's actually functional? I think if you were to buy this and try to build it into a really sophisticated camping vehicle, you'd still want to get rid of that roof rack and add something that's a little bit bigger, a little more functional. So yeah, altogether, I really like the 4Runner TRD Pro. It's really exciting. I'm glad it exists. Really excited to see what Toyota does with the next generation model. But as of right now, I think anybody who is in the market for one of these vehicles should really think twice about buying the TRD Pro and maybe ask yourself if the TRD off-road isn't the better value for your needs.